reflect for a moment on living in a country where the majority of the media sort of treats them as equals. They're both the black sheep. They're both in isolation. So you've got one man standing up for what he believes to be right and standing up for his wife. Now, whether you agree that he's right or not doesn't matter. That is what he's doing. He is standing up for what he believes to be right and standing up for his wife, who he believes to have been treated abominably. Not just by the British media, but also by his own family, who are so terrified of the British media that they wouldn't say boo to a Murdoch goose. And then on the other hand, you've got a pudding of a man, a bread pudding in human form, accused of multiple sexual assaults against a woman who brought a civil case. A man who we know was knocking around with Jeffrey Epstein, a paedophile people trafficker, long after Epstein's crimes had seen him hauled before a court. A man who we know took Jeffrey Epstein to the Queen's favourite house, Balmoral, and photographed him and his partner in crime, Ghislaine Maxwell, on the steps, on a bench that the Queen had famously been photographed in herself. So this milk pudding of a man, this friend of paedophiles, who stayed out of a dock by dint of paying 12 million quid of his mum's money to the woman that had accused him of multiple crimes, he is somehow the yin to Prince Harry's yang, as if the fact that neither of them were allowed to wear uniforms somehow spoke of comparable crimes or comparable offences. I remember watching that, and I enjoyed the coronation, and I've got no particular beef with elements of the royal family, but I remember watching that. I'm a fan of Prince Harry. So I watched that thing at Camp Bastion. I think it was at Camp Bastion, where he was giving an interview to camera, and the siren went off, and he just pulled off his microphone, he jumped up, and he ran towards towards trouble. I know he's in an Apache, or don't hit the deep, but I don't know why. I'm a bit of a sucker for that sort of thing. People running towards danger. It's why I'm a big supporter of the fire service, particularly when they're coming under attack from Tory politicians. Suella Braverman was at it only this week. People who run towards danger, they're not infallible. They've got flaws. They're like the rest of us. They've got failings, but they've got something inside them that most of us haven't got. And I just liked that. And if you told me, and then of course the image of him walking behind his mum's coffin, which he probably doesn't like people talking about. But my God, as someone who's benefited enormously from therapy and suffered a tiny fraction of the trauma that lad must have gone through, that image there, that little boy walking behind it, that coffin, which they made him do. Astonishing to think that when he turned up for his dad's coronation, he was reduced to the same status as his milk pudding uncle, the paedophile's friend. I'm truly breathtaking. But it gets worse. It gets worse. Because...
Welcome back to our channel. Today, we're diving deep into the heart of the royal family's controversies, exploring the striking double standards in how Prince Andrew and Prince Harry are treated by both the monarchy and the media. As we unravel this tale of privilege, hypocrisy, and moral quandaries, we'll question the integrity of the institutions that shape public perception. So, grab a seat as we dissect the moral gymnastics at play and what it reveals about our society. Let's dive in. Right-wing media outlets have found themselves in a rather precarious position, haven't they? On one hand, we've got Prince Andrew, a man who's been, shall we say, less than forthcoming about his questionable associations and activities. Yet there he is, being welcomed back into the royal fold with open arms. Barely a whisper of criticism from these so-called bastions of moral virtue. And on the other hand, Prince Harry, whose great crime appears to be marrying for love and daring to step away from the gilded cage. The hypocrisy is so thick you could cut it with a knife, couldn't you? It's a stunning display of moral gymnastics, watching these media outlets contort themselves to justify their fawning coverage of Andrew while simultaneously tearing Harry to shreds. One has to wonder, what exactly is the metric they're using to measure worthiness? It certainly doesn't seem to be based on any recognizable form of ethics or decency. The royal family's double standard, a tale of two princes. The royal family's so-called code has come under intense scrutiny, with many observers pointing out a glaring double standard in the treatment of Prince Andrew and Prince Harry. It's a bit rich, isn't it? On one hand, we have Prince Andrew, who's been accused of some pretty serious misconduct. We're talking allegations that would make your grand's hair curl. And yet, there he is, being welcomed back into the royal fold with open arms, like a prodigal son who's simply been on an extended gap year. On the other hand, we have Prince Harry, whose great crime seems to be, what exactly? Marrying for love, speaking his mind. Oh, the horror. The contrast couldn't be starker if it tried. It's as if the royal family's moral compass has gone completely haywire, spinning like a deranged merry-go-round at a fun fair. One can't help but wonder if there's a secret rulebook somewhere in the depths of Buckingham Palace that states, alleged misconduct slap on the wrist, independent thinking off with his head. The royal family's double standards, welcoming Andrew, shunning Harry. Prince Andrew's recent welcoming back into the royal fold has raised eyebrows and sparked intense debate. Despite facing serious accusations of sexual assault, the Duke of York seems to be gradually resuming his involvement in royal duties, much to the dismay of many observers. This controversial move stands in stark contrast to the treatment of Prince Harry, who has been largely shunned by the royal family. The disparity in how these two princes are being handled has led many to question the moral compass guiding the monarchy's decisions, with critics pointing out the apparent hypocrisy in embracing Andrew while distancing Harry. The royal family's double standard, a tale of two princes. Prince Harry's departure from royal duties alongside his wife Meghan Markle sent shockwaves through the British monarchy and media landscape. The couple's decision to step back as senior royals, dubbed Megxit by the press, unleashed a torrent of criticism and backlash. Tabloids and right-wing commentators seized upon every detail of their exit, scrutinizing their motives and painting them as ungrateful and disloyal. The vitriol directed at Harry and Meghan stood in stark contrast to the relatively muted response to Prince Andrew's scandals, highlighting a troubling double standard within both the royal family and certain media circles. The royal rift media's double standards exposed. The moral bankruptcy of certain right-wing media outlets has never been more glaringly apparent than in their coverage of the royal family's recent controversies. On one hand, we've witnessed a nauseating display of sycophancy in their treatment of Prince Andrew, with these outlets bending over backwards to defend a man embroiled in serious allegations. They've employed every trick in the book, from downplaying the severity of the accusations to outright character assassination of his accusers. Yet, in stark contrast, these same media mouthpieces have unleashed a relentless barrage of criticism against Prince Harry and Meghan, vilifying them for far less egregious crimes, such as seeking privacy or speaking their truth. It's a hypocritical spectacle that lays bare the moral corruption infesting certain corners of the press, where loyalty to an outdated hierarchy trumps basic decency and journalistic integrity. The royal family's moral quandary, accountability, and media responsibility. The glaring disparity in treatment between Prince Andrew and Prince Harry underscores the pressing need for consistent standards of behavior within the royal family. It's a right pickle, isn't it? On one hand, we've got Prince Andrew, embroiled in a scandal that would make even the most hardened tabloid hack blush, being welcomed back into the royal fold with open arms. And on the other, there's Prince Harry, who's committed the cardinal sin of wanting a bit of privacy and speaking his mind. The mind boggles. But here's the rub. It's not just about the royals themselves, oh no. The media, those noble guardians of truth and justice, have a responsibility too. They ought to be reporting on these matters fairly and ethically, not playing favorites like it's a schoolyard popularity contest. It's high time we had a proper chinwag about accountability, both for those who wear the crown and those who wield the pen. The hypocrisy of royal family coverage. The glaring double standards in the media's treatment of various members of the royal family have become increasingly apparent, highlighting a troubling trend of selective outrage and hypocrisy. While some royals are subjected to relentless scrutiny and criticism for even the slightest perceived misstep, others seem to enjoy a puzzling level of immunity from public censure despite far more serious allegations. This stark contrast in coverage raises serious questions about the integrity of the press and the underlying motivations driving their reporting. The failure to hold all members of the royal family to the same standards of accountability not only undermines the credibility of the media, but also perpetuates a system that seems to prioritize certain narratives over genuine truth-seeking and fair reporting. The royal rift contrasting treatment of princes divides public opinion. The fallout from the royal family's handling of Princes Harry and Andrew has sent shockwaves through public perception, leaving an indelible mark on the monarchy's reputation. As Prince Andrew, despite his controversial associations, finds himself gradually reintegrated into royal circles, the stark contrast with Prince Harry's continued estrangement has not gone unnoticed. This glaring disparity has led to a significant erosion of trust in the monarchy, with many questioning the institution's values and decision-making processes. The public's growing unease has sparked intense debates about the future of the royal institution, as people grapple with whether an establishment that appears to operate on such seemingly arbitrary principles can remain relevant and respected in modern society. The royal rift media, morality, and monarchical madness. The spotlight on the royal family's internal drama has laid bare the stark realities of privilege and power in our media landscape. It's a bit like watching a posh game of musical chairs, isn't it? Only in this version, the music's been composed by tabloid editors and the chairs are gilded thrones. Prince Andrew, despite his, shall we say, questionable associations, finds himself waltzing back into the royal fold with all the ease of a fox slipping into a henhouse. Meanwhile, poor old Harry's left out in the cold, probably wondering if he should have packed a warmer coat when he jetted off to California. It's a classic case of the old boys network in action, with wealth and status acting as a sort of invisibility cloak for misdeeds. One can't help but wonder if the press barons and palace PR wizards are playing from the same dog-eared rulebook, where protecting the powerful trumps trivial matters like, truth or accountability. It's enough to make one's monocle pop out in shock, really. The royal family's double standard, a societal mirror. The treatment of Prince Harry and Prince Andrew by the royal establishment and right-wing media isn't just a family squabble. It's a glaring reflection of broader societal issues plaguing our nation. This stark contrast in how these two princes are received speaks volumes about the entrenched inequality and injustice that permeate our institutions. While Andrew, embroiled in serious allegations, is welcomed back with open arms, Harry's crime of choosing love and independence is met with scorn and exclusion. This hypocrisy lays bare the urgent need for media reform and a return to ethical journalism. Instead of pandering to sensationalism and reinforcing outdated hierarchies, our press should be a beacon of truth, holding power to account regardless of titles or privilege. The royal saga, in essence, serves as a microcosm of the larger societal reforms we desperately need to address. The royal family's moral dilemma, a call for ethical reform. In conclusion, it's high time we demanded a more just and equitable approach to royal coverage, one that doesn't equate the actions of Prince Andrew with those of Prince Harry. The stark contrast in their treatment lays bare the moral bankruptcy of the current system. We must insist on upholding moral and ethical standards within the royal family, just as we would for any other public figures. This isn't about tearing down an institution, but rather about holding it to account and ensuring it reflects the values we aspire to as a society. Only by doing so can we hope to restore integrity to the monarchy and maintain its relevance in the modern world.